Hi guys, it's Frankie from Frankie Tech. Good to see you guys again. Today I wanted to bring you my initial comparison between the Mi 10T Pro and the Google Pixel 5. Now I just picked up this Pixel 5 2 days ago and I gotta tell you guys, it has been one of my favorite phones that I've used this year. Taking everything that I loved about the Pixel 4a, but just doing it in an even more premium way, from the build quality to just these tiny bezels all around on this 6.0, really beautiful 90 Hz OLED display. I've really enjoyed this Pixel 5 so far, but I wanted to compare right here next to the Xiaomi phone that I really am telling you guys is quickly becoming one of my favorite Xiaomi devices this year, the Mi 10T Pro, with obviously this gorgeous Aurora blue back, a very nice 6.67 inch 144 Hz LCD display, and obviously with performance and with cameras that are truly flagship level on this device. But the real surprise with these devices is the price difference, because the Mi 10T Pro is starting at $599 US, while the Pixel 5 is starting at a pretty hefty $699 US, especially because this is using the Snapdragon 765. It is a mid-range chipset, but with a near affordable flagship level price. So how does this Mi 10T Pro stack up against a phone like the Pixel 5? And which do I think is truly the better phone for you? Let's have a look. Design: 9.3 millimeters versus 8 millimeters, 218 grams versus 151 grams. And look at the size difference between these phones. And the Pixel 5 is so small that it can fit the entire phone into the display area of the Mi 10T Pro. Incredible. Now guys, in terms of build quality, of course, the Mi 10T Pro has a gorgeous aluminum edge, and this Aurora blue back is gorgeous, but let me tell you, it is a fingerprint magnet. And after a couple of weeks of use, I am starting to find that a little bit annoying. I will typically use this phone with a case as a result. Meanwhile, the Pixel 5 is using this aluminum back with this kind of matte texture. It feels super premium in the hand, like some sort of well-polished pebble. This Pixel 5 just feels excellent. And from the fingerprint scanner on the back, the Google logo, the camera cutout, it's a far more simple look on this device when you compare it to something like the Mi 10T Pro, which, by the way, guys, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this, but the camera bump on the Mi 10T Pro is massive. It is a monstrous camera bump. Now, I typically don't mind it because I use it with a case, but just for you guys to see, in moving a Pixel 5 around, it doesn't move much, but the Mi 10T Pro definitely, if you put it flat on a surface, will bounce around quite a bit. And on the fronts, we see the bezels on these devices. The Pixel 5's is definitely smaller than the Mi 10T Pro's, but in terms of punch holes, the Mi 10T Pro's does have a slightly smaller one than the Pixel 5's. Look, I may be in the honeymoon phase at this point, but there's just something about the back of the Pixel 5 that I'm absolutely loving. With a gorgeous matte texture, I prefer the design and the very kind of simplified look of this Pixel 5 over the Mi 10T Pro. Displays: we have a 6.67 inch 144 Hz IPS LCD display versus 6.0 OLED 90 Hz on the Pixel 5. And the refresh rates on both of these phones feel very smooth. I do notice a little bit more smoothness here on the Mi 10T Pro, but that's not to say that the Pixel 5 is not a smooth phone. It is very buttery smooth, and I can definitely notice the difference between 90 Hz and 144 Hz, but I can also notice the difference between LCD and OLED. And let me tell you guys, if this Pixel 5 had been 60 Hz OLED, I would probably give the display award to the Mi 10T Pro. But at 90 Hz OLED, I think the Pixel 5 is offering, at least for me, the better overall display experience. With inky blacks in the night, great viewing angles, and most importantly, a 90 Hz refresh rate that, while not as smooth as 144 Hz, does make for a much more fluid scrolling experience. The reality is, guys, I know a lot of you are big fans of the Mi 10T Pro's display, but if I'm gonna pick between a 90 Hz OLED display and a 120 or 144 Hz LCD, I'm still going with OLED. And so despite the smaller size and slightly lower refresh rate, I give the display award win to the Pixel 5. And here's YouTube playback on the Mi 10T Pro and the Pixel 5. And personally, I do like the colors on the Pixel 5 a bit better, but when it comes to immersive experience, let's face it, a larger display will always do the better job, and that's why I'm giving the YouTube playback award here to the Mi 10T Pro. And in DRM Info, this was to be expected, L1 and L1 on both the Mi 10T Pro and the Pixel 5. And that means it's an L1 party here today on Frankie Tech. And talking about performance, this is where we see the clear separation between what the Mi 10T Pro is offering you versus the Google Pixel 5. With a Snapdragon 865 versus 765 on board, you're just getting the more powerful flagship chipset on the Mi 10T Pro. 583,000, and I just ran the Antutu scores on the Pixel 5, and I didn't expect them to be this low. If I'm not mistaken, the Snapdragon 765 can definitely do better than this, and yet this is the range of scores that I've been getting a couple of times now for the Pixel 5. I have read certain reports that there may be some sort of underclocking that is taking place on the Google Pixel 5, which maybe is helping to preserve battery life. Now overall, my experience after 2 days on this device has been very smooth. I have not had any stutters, any issues on this phone. It is very fast and zippy. Running Android 11 out of the box has been great. But the reality is, the Mi 10T Pro has offered me this year, I think, the best MIUI experience on any phone. It really seems that Xiaomi has put a lot of attention on refining the software on this phone, and once you factor in the 240Hz touch sampling rate, 144Hz refresh rate, and that Snapdragon 865 on board, you have the smoothest performing MIUI phone that I have ever used so far. It's a good experience on the Pixel 5, but I'm gonna have to give it here in terms of performance to the Mi 10T Pro. And when it comes to software, it's really going to come down to your personal preference. I, for one, have always been a big stock Android fan, but I know a lot of you guys are now liking MIUI even more. And talking about battery life, we have a 5,000 versus 4,080 milliampere capacity on these phones. And guys, in the past 2 days, I've really been putting these phones to work. The Mi 10T Pro in particular has recorded a number of videos for the channel, and here you see it's done terrific in terms of its battery life. But with an active time of 10 hours and 40 minutes, it's been a battery champ. But the Pixel 5 has also been a battery champ, and with a screen on time of 3 hours and 39 minutes, I'm at 64%, but I haven't truly pushed this battery yet. I will be switching my main SIM to the Pixel 5, and I'm gonna put this battery through its paces, because from what I've seen from other reviewers, this is truly one of the best battery champs of the year. And in terms of fast charging, we have a 33 watt versus 18 watt fast charging capability, but the Pixel 5 also does have wireless charging and reverse wireless charging as well. Guys, it will be definitely interesting to see my real world use battery results on the Pixel 5, but if we're gonna go on just raw specs and numbers alone, I guess we can give the win here to the Mi 10T Pro. And in terms of vibration motor and fingerprint scanners, side mounted on the Mi 10T Pro, but let me tell you, I still appreciate the rear facing fingerprint scanner on the Pixel 5. There's just something about this location that brings me back. It's a little bit more old school. That's my personal preference. I'm going to give the fingerprint award here to the Pixel 5, but let me just say the Mi 10T Pros is starting to get better. Once you get used to it, it is very fast and very accurate. But in terms of vibration motors, and this is a shocker for me to say, but the vibration motor on the Mi 10T Pro, I think, is better than the one on the Pixel 5. The Pixel 5 has always been one of the best haptic experiences on any phone, but for some reason this year, they've made it a little bit less good. It's still really solid, but it's definitely not to the flagship level of even the previous Pixel 4 series. Meanwhile, the Mi 10T Pro has just stepped it up in this regard, and it is offering one of the best haptic vibration motor experiences on any phone. I never thought I would say this, but I'm giving the vibration motor haptic feedback win here to the Mi 10T Pro. And the audio speaker test, dual speakers on both the Mi 10T Pro and the Pixel 5. Let me point the mic forward. Let's have a listen. And what can I say? That was actually a larger gap than I expected. The Mi 10T Pro is definitely the loudest of these two speakers. The Pixel 5 is surprisingly quiet. But even further than that, I actually preferred the sound on the Mi 10T Pro with a lot more clarity and just a better overall sound than the Pixel 5's. I did not expect the audio quality to be this quiet on the Pixel 5. That's a bit of a letdown. And so I give the audio speaker test win here to the Mi 10T Pro. And last but not least, guys, the cameras. And stay tuned for my full camera comparison between these phones. But for now, just sharing the overall specs comparison. 108 megapixel main camera versus 12.2 on the Pixel 5. It's the same camera that's been used on Pixel phones for quite a while. and a 13 megapixel versus 16 megapixel ultra wide camera with a 5 megapixel macro camera. Let's just put that one aside. I really don't think it's that important here on this phone. And of course on the fronts, 20 megapixel versus 8 megapixel f2.2 versus f2.0, and these phones are capable of 4K 60 FPS video, but the Mi 10T Pro is capable of 8K 30 FPS video. And stay tuned, of course, for the full camera comparison, but let me just say, it is so great to have the Pixel 5 in my possession because I truly do think it represents the best point-and-shoot camera for Android on the market. Now, you may disagree, you may say Pixel cameras are overrated, and the fact that this is 108 megapixels versus 12 means it automatically wins. Unfortunately, that's not how cameras work, and while the Mi 10T Pro has taken some really stellar shots, I still think the Pixel 5, with its computational photography, may have the edge. But of course, stay tuned for the full camera comparison between these phones. I will be bringing that very soon. So that's it for this video and my final initial verdict between the Mi 10T Pro and the Pixel 5. Look, I think for many of you out there, the choice is clear. The Mi 10T Pro just hands down offers better value than the Pixel 5. From the performance, Snapdragon 865, to just really great build quality, it is a beautiful phone, albeit a fingerprint magnet, but with a really gorgeous 144Hz LCD display, great audio, terrific battery life, and solid camera results from this phone as well. For the price you're going to pay for this phone, you are getting probably one of the best deals in smartphones in the Mi 10T Pro. So if that's the case, why even compare it to the Pixel 5? Well, I think, guys, the Pixel 5 is really less about the specs and it's more about the experience. And just like iPhones get a bad reputation for not having all the specs or the fastest charging, once you use a Pixel phone, it's the overall combination of hardware and software that play together in just the nicest and most intriguing ways. Add to that, you have amazing features here on a Pixel 5 that you will just not get on a Mi 10T Pro, like a voice recorder and voice dictation that is unsurpassed. And I know for a lot of people, this type of technology is something that is very useful for journalists if you want to make sure that you're getting a transcript of a meeting or whatever it is you're doing. This is not something that you're going to get on a Xiaomi device. But there's a lot in terms of specs this Pixel gets right, like battery life. This is the first Pixel phone that I think can be truly called a battery champ. To this gorgeous design, really solid with tiny bezels all around. Finally, we have a modern looking Pixel device. And last but not least, the cameras, which I truly think are still the best point and shoot cameras on any Android phone. Now guys, despite my feelings though of the Pixel 5, there's no denying that value is a very big important part of my analysis here on Frankie Tech. And if we're talking about pure value alone, then I gotta give it here to the Mi 10T Pro. And stay tuned for the full camera comparison where maybe the Pixel 5 will have a bit of an edge, but I think for the rest of you, you will be happier with the Mi 10T Pro. It just offers more for the money and is my winner of this comparison. But hit me up in the comments. Mi 10T Pro or Pixel 5? Which would you pick? I know that most of you are going to say Mi 10T Pro is the better option, but tell me something about the Pixel 5 that you do like. Hit me up in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. And that's it for this video. If you liked it, give me that thumbs up. And if you love the content of Frankie Tech, subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon for future updates. Stay tuned, guys, for that full camera comparison. I think it will be very interesting to see how the Mi 10T Pro stacks up in camera quality next to the Pixel 5. And that's it. This is where I leave you by saying, this is Frankie Tech, signing off. Have a good one.